Well, hello out there to everybody in Instagram world. My name is Latrice Sampson Richards, and I am the host of Unicorns Talk podcast, and I am welcoming you to the Afros and Audio Creative Kickback. Hi, listen, I got sidetracked. I saw our first little peoples come in here, and I got sidetracked. Welcome to the Afros and Audio Creative Kickback Conversations. Hi. We are I'm excited. I'm excited to be here because we kind of like tipping into a world that I'm very, very familiar with. We are talking tonight with Damien L. Butler, who works with youth. He's a youth empowerment coach. I believe he'll be able to give you his exact terms. But he is an amazing person, and so we're looking forward to getting started with him as soon as he makes it on in here. And we're going to go ahead and add him onto the live stream. In the meantime, what y'all could do is make sure that you are signed up for the Afros and Audio newsletter. You can head on over to afrosandaudio.com and sign up for the newsletter so that you can stay up to date on all of the great things that we have going on. There's Damien. Here he come, y'all. Success. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening. I'm well.
Good
How are you?
evening. Good evening. Well, it's great to see you finally, to be able to have a conversation with you. I'm really looking forward to it. I was just saying that, I'm kind of excited about this because you work specifically with youth. And, that's been my area for a long time. I'm a therapist by trade. And my entire career, the last 10 years, has been working with youth around mental and emotional wellness. So, and I can't believe, so when I sent you that email the other day, the confirmation email, I actually had just gotten off of your website because, I do my research, you know what I'm saying? And I looked at your website and I saw as clear as day that you started out in Air Force and then you transitioned into Army. I don't know what possessed me to put Sailor on that email. And the crazy part is that my last job, the majority of my career, I have spent doing military counseling. So I know better.
Well, it's okay. I forgive you. I forgive you. The Army got themselves together. They're beating up on Navy now, so it's okay. It's okay. One team, one fight.
You know what? There is power in a forgiving heart. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you for that forgiveness. So Mr. Damien L. Butler is joining us tonight. Damien is going to give y'all a little bit of information about who he is and why it is important for you to go and follow him and listen to his show. Damien?
Good evening, everybody. Well, as I say on my podcast, what's happening, party people? I'm Damien L. Butler. The L is very important because if you Google Damien Butler, you find a pilot in England, a banker in Australia, and a bunch of people that aren't me. So
and a sports agent as well.
Oh, okay. There you go. There's another one. So I learned a lesson earlier. My cousin who was in marketing was like, you got to own your space, own your name, go get it. So it worked out for me. But I am, as you said, I work with young people. I'm currently a JROTC teacher. I'm retired Army, but now I'm in the classroom teaching leadership and life skills. And I appreciate you for being a therapist because the way things are going now in the classroom, you are a major player in how we get things done. And sending kids home, and that somehow that transition is harder now. So I mean, we definitely need the help of therapists and clinical professionals to help us get through in the classroom day by day. So I appreciate you for what you do. But
yeah,
I've been doing it for. No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you. Go ahead.
It's definitely a team effort.
Mhm.
But I've been working with young people since I was a young person. I mean, my first group of mentees was when I was 19 years old. I don't know if I want to start putting years and dates out there. I mean, I know I see the gray, but
You know, you got your little Frederick Douglass going on, you know,
you
so
know what?
hey.
My nephew, oh, everybody, ever since my nephew said that to me, that's what everybody says. You look like Frederick Douglass, but it could be worse. I'll take it. Somebody told me Steven from Django, and that kind of hurt my feelings. But
Oh,
that was one person.
not
But
Uncle Ruckus, huh? That's what they tried to hit you with the Uncle Ruckus.
oh no. But so back to, way back when I initially joined the Air Force, I went back to my high school. Well, I got stationed in my hometown at the time. I graduated high school in the DC area, and I went back to the school to teach, the Air Force GROTC kids how to do, drill and ceremony, color guard, and all that kind of stuff. And as growing up, I always thought, public speakers and teachers were really cool because they had the audience, they had a little, every now and then they have a little cup of water, they go reach and take a quick sip, get back into there. And I was like, that's something I want to do. So young people were always a focus for me because I just knew that people had sown into me as a child coming up. It was just something I wanted to do. And it kind of grew into years later, working with, I've coached all kinds of sports. I coach right now, uh, trying to teach, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Always wanted to be an officer in the military. So it was just all these things kind of came together. But
Yeah.
working with young people has always been a focus for me. So that's where Manifest One Empowerment Group came from. So I finally sat
Absolutely.
down and, put it together in 2006. I had a group of young men in the basement of my house. I gave them a notebook and a pen. It's like, these are how you're going to take notes and go to learn to be successful and, keep track of what's going on. So those young men are now grown and, starting their families and careers and all that kind of stuff. So the cycle just continues. So,
Yeah,
and as they
absolutely.
get older, my audience gets older. So young people and young professionals, I'm trying to, help help them get the lessons that they don't necessarily get in school because either overlooked or, somebody's not doesn't want to talk to them, whatever it may be. But that's the focus. That's what Manifest One Empowerment Group is all about.
That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And you know, it's so interesting how you say, you know, you got into it because um like from a young age, that it was almost like it was something that was kind of like instilled in you. It's kind of the same way for me, you know. I've always been in somebody youth group, you know, growing up. We grew up in a Catholic church, but it was Black Catholic, you know. So we had like we was at church 3, 4, 5 times a damn week, you
Yep.
know. And so I was an altar server. I was in the youth group. I was in the children's choir. I was in the junior daughters. Like if there was a group to be in, I was in that group. And you know, it really kind of shaped and instilled in me a love for giving back and working with the community and things like that. And I just kind of naturally gravitated toward working with youth. I'm really interested now, like I've not doing one-on-one sessions really anymore. I still have like 3 one-on-one clients that I see online. But for the most part, I'm actually now in mental health administration. And so
Okay.
trying to make an impact from a different perspective. And I love it. I've been doing it a little less than a year now in the position that I'm in now. And I love it because I get to be creative about how, you know, I introduce mental health to young people and how we get young people engaged and participating in their own mental health. And so I love when my two worlds get an opportunity to collide. I mean, my whole brand is the collision of my two worlds. You know, I am a mental and emotional wellness creative. And so everything that I create is around mental health and mental wellness and emotional wellness and things like that. And so I wanted us to have a conversation tonight about, you know, the importance of really fostering a sense of creativity in our youth and how those creative endeavors can have a lasting impact on their lives. We're seeing nowadays younger and younger, like listen, they got some Instagram stars that's like
Yep.
10, 11, 12 years old. Like these children are making real deal money. My little niece in Jamaica, my husband is Jamaican, and so my niece in Jamaica, she sends me her little TikTok videos, she be telling her follow her fans or whatever you call them on TikTok. So y'all go cover my follow my auntie and this, that, and the other. So like they are growing up in a time right now where the world is like their oyster. Like they can create whatever it is that they want to create. And I think that's exciting and scary, a little scary at the same time. Yes, yes. What are your thoughts about just the amount of the vast array of opportunities when it comes to creative endeavors, and like really they have unprecedented access to just exposure and audience, and like there's almost zero limitations on their ability to be able to produce creative content. So what are your thoughts around the impact that level of exposure will ultimately have on this next generation of kids who are growing up never having known anything different?
I tell my students all the time that the world is literally at their fingertips. I mean, there was a time that you had to go to a book to find out information. Encyclopedias don't exist anymore, but now you can go online and get anything you want. You can find just about anybody you want, and it's wide open. But, that, and everybody can see you, so it's like that you really can't hide. But in a lot of ways, that kind of gives young people a lot more anxiety. But they have a voice now that, especially with all this going on in the world, there are a lot of, this is an election year. Everybody's talking about, vote Trump out, do this, do that. But you got, 16, 17-year-olds that can't vote, but they're still using their voice to voice their opinion. And they know what they want. And they're realizing they have an avenue or a stage to, express themselves. And, good, bad, or indifferent, I mean, it's still going to take the village to kind of shape what they do, because once it's there, it's there. When you go to the next level and as you go into adulthood, we're in cancel culture now. So if you cutting up as a child and, 5 years down the line, you're trying to get a job, you're trying to get into a particular position, and we just happen to stumble over a 5-year-old, TikTok of you acting a fool, that may cost you something. So there's a level of responsibility that we have to teach our children, that where much is given, much is required. This you've been given the world, so you're required to understand, second, third order effects. And at that, as a child, you don't think about it. You think about today, and that's it. You may not even be thinking about dinner. You're thinking about right now. So, just developing skills to think long term, because, I don't know how many times I've said it. Oh, I'm glad we didn't have, social media back when I was young. Because there's just things that you do growing up in the process of learning the world. You do stupid stuff. You go places that you don't necessarily, you shouldn't be, or, you do things you shouldn't do, but it's okay. But now there's a camera, and there's pictures, and there's this and there's that, and it's going to come back to haunt you. So you have to be careful on what you put out into the world. Got to be careful on who you let in too, because, there's all kind. I mean, there's bots out there. There's this nasty people in the world that want to just, that their whole purpose in life is to be filed. So you have to, understand the power that you have in your hands and use it wisely, because it's going to help out. I mean, everything, podcasts, or, everybody can start a podcast. Anybody can start a YouTube channel. Anybody can, like I said, kids are doing, making millions on Instagram and YouTube, just doing things that kids do. They get toys, they review them, and they put them out there. And, as a kid being cute. So those are great opportunities, but there's also a lot of, there's a lot that can go wrong. We just have to make sure we maintain, and set our barriers up early so they can grow into them, and then as they grow, we can, expand on what they're able to do. It's,
Yeah.
it's huge because they all have a voice and they're learning how to use it. So we got to
Yeah.
prepare them to do so.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about the whole, internet, the level of exposure that currently exists with the internet is how creative the kid, like we really get to see the innovation, we get to see the creativity. And it's like, yes, as they say, to whom much is given, much is expected, right? So like they literally have the world at their fingertips. That's a lot, that's a lot of access that's being given to them. But I find it very encouraging that we're seeing more and more youth who are actually taking that information, taking the access that they have, and are actually creating content that's relevant to them, relevant to the lives that they're living, that is forward thinking and innovative, and, really kind of pushing the envelope. There's a young lady here in South Florida. I live in Fort Lauderdale. I live in Broward County. And so there's a young lady here named Shanice. I cannot remember Shanice's last name. I actually follow her on Facebook too. That's gonna bother me till I remember that. But she was actually highlighted last year on BET for the Black Girls Rock awards ceremony, and she was highlighted for being a youth activist in her community. And that was actually how I found out about her, because I'm new to this area. I'm from New Orleans, but I'm learning, how to, yeah. Listen, you can take the girl out of New Orleans, but you can't take the New Orleans out of the girl. It's just what it is, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, and so she's a young activist, and I started following her on like Facebook and stuff like that. And this young lady has she's really building an entire empire. So like she's at the phase now where I think she just turned 17 or 18 or something. I think she's just graduated from high school, about to start her first semester of college. And she spent the whole summer selling stuff. So she was baking and selling cookies and things like that. She was selling T-shirts. She ran like a Kickstarter campaign or something. She has a book that she's written, and she sells that book in order to be able to fund her activism and to be able to fund the work that she's doing in the community. And I think that's a beautiful thing that, because they have this level of access to the internet and to social platforms and things like that, those kids know how to use that stuff like we will never understand, like they know all of the ins and outs about how to make it happen. And they are very, very savvy when it comes to getting your followers up and things like that. So I'm very encouraged by the fact that we're seeing a lot of these youth who are utilizing that access for good and to educate their fellow young people, It's a lot of people who want to say, or like people who try to say that like this new generation, I don't even know if they have a name yet, because we was calling them millennials, but I don't think that's accurate. So what are they, Gen Zers or something like that?
Millennials or something crazy like that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people who still try to maintain a narrative that these kids are lost and these kids don't have any direction or any motivation, X, Y, and Z, which is, in my opinion, it's a fallacy. What has your experience been like with the youth that you've worked with? What has your experience been like in terms of their level of motivation to do something different, to live a different kind of life. Do you think that the stereotype of these Gen Zers being lazy and lost and entitled and all of that, do you think that that's an accurate description?
It's not, and I know for a fact because right now I coach a girls lacrosse team, and
Mm.
we lost our season because of COVID, so we spent a lot of time on Zoom or texting back, not texting, but communicating back and forth through Instagram, and I get to watch their stories and all the stuff that
Mhm.
that they're into. You start to see their personalities, and they understand that they're using their platform to get their voice heard. A lot of them talk a lot about mental health awareness and being a girls lacrosse team, women's rights, and all that kind of stuff. And they do their research, and research is easy to do now, so that's a plus. But they get the information, and for the most part, well, actually, I haven't had any problems with anybody doing anything crazy. They're all using their platform for good, and
Mm.
then they're policing each other up. They're making sure that no one's getting out there and being crazy. There are kids. Kids are kids. I mean, you have you have the good kids, you got the bad kids, but they're out doing what they need to do for the most part. They know that they want to do something more than what they're doing now, and they know that they have an opportunity to start, so they're taking advantage of it. You know,
Yeah.
when they're motivated properly, when they're given direction and room to grow, they're gonna flourish. But a lot of the kids that are caught up in this, they're lazy, they're this, they're that. They're under a lot of stress. They're
Hmm.
under the thumb of a lot of people telling them what they can and can't do. It's like
Hmm.
for them, you get. I believe you set boundaries. You can do this, but as soon as you go over here, that's a problem. And anything in between this and that, go for it. And then as you get stronger and better and smarter, you get to do more. And those boundaries get pushed and continue to grow. So it's about developing, but the laziness and the loss, they're definitely not lost. They share too much information, and
Yeah.
they have access to too much information to be lost. They may
Yeah.
not know how to use it all, but they're not lost. They're
So
they're finding their way.
why do you think that narrative continues to be like, why do you think that narrative continues to be pushed? Like, who benefits from the greater society believing that the new generation is lost?
Well, the power structure is changing, and I saw a comment go up that young people are changing the status quo because
Hmm.
you know at one point it was if once you had as long as you had the information, you were in power. Now everybody has it. Now that you can't really hide it. So if I can create doubt in somebody and make you look to me, I'm going to have the power. And power structures is changing, and those that, you know, what was the movie, the Jamie Foxx movie on Netflix was like, power will always be where it has been. The power
Yeah.
and power experiment, whatever. So power is always going to be for the people who had it. But
Hmm.
that's changing now, and it's changing faster than most people want it to. I mean,
Yeah.
just with my 16-year-old, we have conversations just I have a 21-year-old and a 16-year-old daughter. Some conversations I have with my 16-year-old, I didn't have with my 21-year-old. I mean, they're two different personalities, and that happens, but it's just the way things are now is so much different than the way things were just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's changing so fast that if I can control the narrative, then I can kind of slow things down. But it's not working out that way. It's
Hmm.
kids are look at the kids down from I can't remember Parkland. That's not too far from you, right? It's a little
Yeah,
north of you.
it's Broward
All
County.
those
It's in
kids,
the same county.
they're now those high school kids are now in college, but they've made waves from you
Hmm.
know that unfortunate shooting to now. I mean, some of the kids didn't even go to college because they had too much to do to going on the speaking circuit and talking about gun violence and all the changes that come that way. I mean, they're going up against. I mean, was way back in the beginning of the presidential campaign when the young man put Marco Rubio on the spot. He's like, will you take money from the NRA? Will you take? So, and this is a dude, I don't think he was even voting at that time, but he had a
Yeah.
voice. And they were trying to like, oh, he's too young, he's not ready. Because it's a power shift.
Yeah.
And, you know, the powers that be don't want to give up the power, because if they give up the power, then they're not in power anymore. And I mean, it's, you know, it comes down to money. I try to stay away from politics, but I can't, because as much as I say I don't want my podcast to be about politics, I've listened to past episode and I've talked about politics over, because it intertwines into the way we do things and how
Yeah.
rules are made and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, you got more people like AOC getting ready to push their way into, you know, positions of making decisions. Maybe not at all in at the, you know, U.S. Congress level, but locally and statewide, you got a lot of young people that are now learning how to harness and use their voice to make change.
Listen, I
So,
voted, I did the mail-in vote here, you know, and I voted for a young man. I want to say he's like 21 or no, I think he's like 24 or something like that. And I voted for him. I looked at his
yeah,
platform, and his platform was solid. He sounded like, you know, he was confident about what it was that he wanted to do, what he felt was important in terms of, you know, impacting the county, impacting our community and things like that. And I voted for him. I gave him my vote because I definitely feel like it's time for a changing of the guards. You know, my mom and them, you know, my mom still go to the church, you know, and she's in the, I call it the church lady organization, you know, so she's in the church lady organization, and, you know, they take it serious, you know, they take it serious.
yeah.
And so she's been saying for years, they have been saying, well, we getting old, and we need to have some of these young people. Y'all got to come in
Yeah.
here and y'all got to take it up. And so, you know, I started, this was before I met my husband and everything. So this has been a while now, but I started going to the meetings and stuff and trying to get involved. And some of the people that I grew up with that you know, we all grew up in the church or with our same church. We tried to get involved, and we go to the meetings. And when it's time to vote on something, and we said the first thing was the meetings was on Friday night.
That's a bad
For
time for
like
young people.
3 hours of peak Friday night time. You know what I'm saying? And so I told them, I said, well, if y'all want more young people to come, then y'all need to change the day of this meeting, because I'm not coming here every Friday night. I'm just telling y'all now that I'm not coming here every Friday night. I got other things to do. And they fought back against that so hard. And
Because they
it
were so used to
ultimately,
doing it that way.
because they were so used to doing it that way. So it's definitely time for a changing of the guards, you know. Just getting into the comments real quick, Talib said, young people are disrupting the status quo as they have with each generation, and their art is both political and non-political. They are creating freely, and absolutely it is. And some of these young people are hilarious. I
Oh,
just
yeah.
watched Kev on Stage, who is one of my favorite creators. I
I love
love
that.
just how authentic his stuff is. It's very raw, and it's very authentic, and I enjoy that. He just started a new podcast with his 10-year-old son, and it
See?
was his idea. His son said, I want to do a podcast. And he said, okay, what's the podcast about? Or what's the podcast called? He said, I don't know, with JoJo. He said, because I don't know what we're going to talk about. And that's the show. And it's a
But
really,
he's
really
setting
good
those
show.
parameters. He's letting them operate in that space to create what he needs to create.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Talib has a question. He says, what are your thoughts, Damien, on tonight's NBA strike and the baseball team and the strike of the baseball team because of the murder of Jacob Blake at the hands of the police?
I salute them both. I didn't know about the baseball team. I did see that the Bucks, decided to, not play the game, and that is a changing of the guard. I mean,
Yeah.
we look at a couple of days ago, we were celebrating Kobe's birthday. Like Kobe is the hero to all of the big time
Yeah.
NBA stars right now.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, Jordan is my guy, but Jordan doesn't exist anymore. So that crew of, Jordan,
Yeah.
that they're gone. So now it's a younger group of people that have their own ideas that are doing what they need to do, and they can say, you know what, we have the power. We're driving this train, and we're not going to do it. We're not going to stand up and let you continue to do what we're going to. They're using their platform. I mean, we'll go back to 2000, Colin Kaepernick, whenever that was. Because I remember I talked about Colin Kaepernick on one of my podcast episodes, and I was talking about protesting and boycott. He's using his platform, but we take that back to the 1960s. That was Muhammad Ali's whole reason that he couldn't fight. So it's repeating itself, but it's getting bigger because the platform is bigger. The people have more attention, and it is. But the powers that be are fighting that structure. It's like, what can we do to protest? You don't want us to take a knee. We can't go out in the streets. We can't break stuff down. We can't set stuff on fire. But you can continue to put your knee on my neck?
And we can't
whatever the
even
situation.
verbalize that our lives matter. Like we can't even say that who we are.
I tell you what, I can't do anything. Well, you're not going to get Game 5 of this playoff series. I salute you 100%. If I had tickets for that game, well, I guess now at this point there's nobody there, but I'm there. I'm going out there to clap for them. They're taking their own power. They're using the environment that they have, and they're making the best of it. And all you can do is be mad. I mean, millions of dollars. You're making hundreds of thousands of dollars to play this game. You can live without that, and it's fine. And if you want to give that away, or that the owners hold it back, I'm taking a stand. I'm making my point, and you're gonna hear me. You're either gonna hear me loud and clear, or you're not gonna see me. Which one is it?
Yes.
And
yes.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Yeah. I'm with that. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, it's like this is the time to make noise. I mean, with whoever it may be, with young white girls getting ready to grow up to be grown white women, or young non-white women playing the game of lacrosse. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff going on in the world that you have to that people are taking a stand to do. To make sure that people understand that we don't like the way things are going. We're going to put up a fight to change it, and you are going to take notice. Mm-hmm. Whether you want to or not, you are going to take notice. And what can you do? But all right, something's got to change, because it's going to get to a point where everybody's starting to see that this is wrong. You can't keep doing business like this, and no one's going to no one's going to play in the NBA, because the NBA, this for the sake of argument, the NBA is supporting an oppressive regime, oppressive system. I don't want to be a part of oppression, so I'm just not going to. I'll go play somewhere else. And there's going to be a new league that's going to be started where people have an opportunity to say what they need to say. And that's the difference between the NBA and the NFL. So the fact that they can do this, and it's no one's kicking and screaming, it's like, all right, cool, do what you got to do. And then for Milwaukee to do it, being Kenosha's right there in the Milwaukee area, much respect to them for doing it. I don't know who led the charge, but hats off to him.
Absolutely. So follow-up question, Joelle. Hey, Joe. Joelle says, how has your content shifted because of the pandemic and the civil unrest and things? Like, has your content adjusted? You mentioned earlier, like, being a little bit more political these days than what you probably would necessarily want to be. How has your content and the way that you create your content been impacted by everything that's going on?
Well, the beauty of the creation process for a podcast has not changed. I mean, for the most part, my podcast is me in a room going over my the content area that I want to cover for the day, or I may have somebody on, which I do every now and then. But the last, let's see, since May, I've done a couple of episodes strictly focused on, how to make change and how to deal with what's going on. I did an episode, I think it was maybe 5 minutes, if it was 5 minutes long, and it was like, keep that energy. It was like I talked about, look, Blackout Tuesday was cool. I thank you for the black squares, but that was attendance. The test is coming. You're going to be tested and hit, when it's your time. So I'm doing my best to use my voice and use my platform to say, hey, let pay attention to what's going on, do your part, because you're gonna be judged. No, maybe not by man. I'm a man of faith. I grew up in church, and you mentioned Kevin on stage. I like him because he makes fun of the holiness church, and that's the church I grew up in. But I believe that judgment is coming. And be it judgment on Judgment Day, but people are looking at you. Just like I said, what you put on social media now is going to be looked at later. So I want to be part of the solution. I want to be part of making things better. I want to help people understand what's going on and help them learn some things. So, right when COVID hit, I made a short episode, When Life Gives You Lemons, Make Lemon Meringue Pie. Like, a lot of bad things are going to come, and use it to create a skill, to hone a skill, to rest up and do and be better. I mean, later on, just the whole, but pandemic is working, and it's dealing with me in a lot of different ways. So now it's like, okay, it's time to take a break. But in the break, I talk about things I'm doing outside of the podcast. So I try to keep everything relevant and purposeful, but connected to what's happening in the world and the people that are around me. I mean, the young activists that I deal with, like I said, I have mental health activists, women's rights activists. I mean, my team. Shout out to my lacrosse team. Those young ladies are doing great things to make sure that they are in tune with what's going on. And as their coach, I want to be an example. So I want to make sure my content reflects what's happening. Once we come back from our break, we're going to talk a little bit more about the political process and how important it is and why it is. So I try to stay relevant and not just focus on leadership areas, because that changes. Self-awareness is huge, and understanding the environment is very important, especially to my audience. As it's big or small, however it is. I want to make sure that I'm making sense and connecting and being part of, the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, one of the things that when I was looking through your website and kind of just reading up about who you are and what your journey was, and or has been, because you're still on the journey, right? So what your journey has been. One of the things that really stood out to me was you talk about a lot of the oh goodness, my brain just completely went blank. I had a real question that I was about to ask, and my brain went completely blank just now. I apologize for that. I was going to ask you about the structure of the military. How much of the way that you do things now, in terms of how you approach your interactions with the kids, how you go about motivating them, how you go about instilling in them the different traits and characteristics that they will need in terms of like life skills and things like that. How much of that is informed by the time that you spent in the military? Because you were in the military for like 20 years, right? Like all together?
25. By the time I retired, 25. So
that's like a whole
it's a big
lifetime,
part. Oh yeah, it's they're transitioning out, and it's a longer transition than I expected, but it's a good situation to be in. But it plays a big part, because one, right now I'm a JROTC instructor, so I still wear my uniform. When we were in school, I wore my uniform. I represented the Army in the high school, but I'm able to use that structure to build some things out because everybody's not going into the Army. No, everybody doesn't want to be a soldier, and that's fine. But like my definition of leadership, I stole from the Army. Well, I didn't steal it. I took it with me when I left the Army. You know, the process of writing purpose, direction, motivation. I'm drawing a blank now too. Purpose, direction, motivation, while completing the mission and improving the organization. So we got to be able to. I got to be able to communicate with you and have a relationship so I can tell you what's happening. You know, what do we need? What do we need to do? What are the results we're trying to get? So how do we go there? So this is what we're doing. I got to motivate you and continue to give you, you know, tell you why. Kids ask why more. That used to be a 2-year-old thing. Now, why do we have to do that? Why do we have to do this? Why? So you got to develop a certain set of a certain amount of patience to be able to explain that why. And just always tell them because the why may change sometimes. So we're making this change because this, that. So, you know, just keep moving them forward in the right direction. And at the end of the day, you have to improve this. You know, you want kids to leave. I want kids to leave me better than they came to me. For however much time you spend around me. You know, I say that before anything else, I'm a teacher. And if you spend any amount of time around me and you don't learn something, I've wasted your time. So it's about improving the situation. And that is the biggest sign of leadership for me. How did you improve? Or how did you just make things better or get out of the situation we're in and took us to a new level? You know, and that structure that's just been the Army definition of leadership at every school and leader development course that we take throughout the Army. And the Air Force as well. I mean, I just have more Army in my head because I taught college students to become lieutenants, and this is how we do things. And now I'm teaching high school students, you know, through the Army to, you know, leave high school and be prepared for life. So all of those skills, all that terminology, all of those processes are still there. I mean, I was in the military long. I've done that one thing longer than I've done anything else in my life. So it's always going to have impact, but I know I have to change up a little bit to reach people in a different way because everybody doesn't, you know, people see me in uniform, they think I'm a cop. And I don't carry a gun or have a badge on, but they just, oh, you're the police. No, but so, you know, that creates a different type of dynamic in our relationship. But as we build that relationship, continue to communicate, keep providing purpose, direction, motivation, they get to where they need, you know, for the most part. You know, I don't get, you know, 100% of the kids, but I get 95%, and I can take that.
You get the ones that was intended to be impacted by you, you know, and I think that really matters. Sunshine says, well, she says that you got some Frederick Douglass realness going on, and she also said that she's mesmerized by my voice, so thank you for that as well. But she's saying that it's interesting how some of the white people who have a problem with the NBA and the basketball taking a pause right now because of Black Lives Matter or because of quarantine or whatever it may be, that they didn't have a problem with it during 9/11. It's because they understood that there were bigger things. And I agree. I mean, 100%. I think that people understand the things that they want to understand, you know.
Right.
You need to make an effort to understand something. And if it's not there for you, like if you don't see value in it, or if you don't feel like you're personally impacted by it, then it's difficult for people to put themselves in somebody else's shoes, you know. How they say, walk a mile in my shoes. Like, it's not easy for people to do that a lot of times. And so one of the questions that Talib is asking, which I was actually moving in that direction, he's talking about emotional intelligence. And he says that emotional intelligence is something that lacks in most people, young and old. Because listen, I be trying to tell people, you don't stop being stupid because you turn 18. You know what I'm saying? You don't stop being ignorant because you turn 18. You don't stop being hurt and bruised, emotionally battered just because you turned 18, right? So those emotionally ignorant young people turn into emotionally ignorant adults. And so how do you model emotional intelligence for the youth that you work with? And how do you teach it through your podcasting and in your leadership?
It's all about community. Well, before I say communication, self-awareness. You know, I need to be able to see when I was cutting up, because there are times where I just, you know, you get emotional. I'm a pretty laid back person, so I don't yell a lot, but I do yell. And you know, my wife has said to me a few times, you need to calm down. It's like you know, so understanding, you know, when those things happen, you kind of deal with them. But as far as teaching, you talk about it when you make a mistake or when you're in that moment. And I'll take it to the, you know, back to lacrosse field, because that's where I spend most of my time now. If I do something crazy or out of the ordinary and the players see me, they have an opportunity to say, hey, coach, what happened? Why? And I have to own it. And then we sit down and we talk about it. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what's going on. You know, I was wrong to do this, or I felt this way, or, you know, we talk about it. It's not about, well, just, you know, I don't know. I don't know how to brush it off, because you have to deal with it, because that situation is going to come up again. I mean, in the course of in a normal season, 18 games, you know, that's 36 hours of you watching me, and, you know, 36 hours of you watching me tell you what to do, that we spent 9 hours a week doing for this 50-minute game. You know, and now it's like, okay, I'm gonna yell at you for this, and we've been talking about this, and now you start to put the pieces together. It's like, we talked about this on Monday, we did it again on Tuesday, here you are in the game on Thursday. Now you can't remember any of it. We have to focus on, so you have to kind of put the pieces together, paint the picture, and help and let them put their input in as well, because they know what's going on, they know how they felt. And sometimes you may say something, but you don't think it's not a big deal, but you crush that player. And they have to be able to say, I'm hurt, you hurt me, we have to deal with it.
That's what it is. That's what it is. And that's what I was going to say, is that what you're describing is really just modeling, right? So you have to model those behaviors for them. So them being able to see you lose your temper and then be able to come back and apologize for it, or say, hey, or like, you know, this is what I was feeling, this is what I was dealing with, this is why I reacted the way that I did, but I acknowledge that maybe that wasn't the best way to react, to apologize for your behavior, to use it as a teaching lesson. I think more people, adults in particular, you know, really could stand to benefit from humbling themselves when it comes to how we interact with young people. You know, the old adage of children should be seen and not heard, I don't believe that. Even as a child, I never subscribed to that. I think that is the most asinine thing that I've ever heard, you know, because if we don't let them speak, if we don't let them emote, if we don't let them deal with things when they are younger, then how are they ever going to learn the skills that they need to be able to do it when they become an adult? How can we, I feel like in our society, specifically in American society, we expect for our children, it's like somehow 18 has become this
magic
number of like emotional maturity and adulthood. And that's just, it's crazy. It is absolutely
most people
insane.
Aren't teachers. Most people aren't. They don't take time. Most people aren't self-aware. They don't take time to, you know, understand self-awareness. Humility is not common. You know, we have this thing of the power structure is set up for us to just be in power. We don't ever show, like, one of the hashtags I use all the time is the process and the journey. Everybody just wants to get to their destination. Nobody wants to know, wants to learn the process and go through that journey. And it's just get me there. It's like, no, it's step by step. You have to go through it. And I mean, I talk about on my podcast, self-awareness, resiliency, self-care, humility. I think one episode of we had a segment called Iron Sharpens Iron. So it was I can't remember exactly. Little humility goes a long way. That's the essential quote that I came for that day, and it rang out because it makes sense. If you get so caught up in I'm the boss, I'm in charge, I'm this, I'm that. Because I mean, I remember having a conversation with my daughters, like, oh, your opinion doesn't matter. I wasn't trying to say like you can't say anything, but it's like this is the goal we got to get to. But it takes a village. My wife had to rephrase that whole thing and get to a point where, all right, this is how we go. So it's not always about one person being able to do it either. It that community, the village. I don't know everything. I can't see everything, and there are times that I'm so caught up in what I'm doing that I don't know what's going on. So you have to be able to give up some of that power and control to let other people and other things happen. So that's a huge piece of children not being able to develop because people don't know how to do it, or they don't want to give up the power that it takes for them to develop someone else. Empowerment is a huge thing. It's a scary word to a lot of people.
It is, because for many people, if someone else is empowered, then that makes them feel suppressed or less empowered, right? When that could not be further from the truth, right? It's not an accurate statement. And one of the things that we're learning more and more is that young people, they have a voice. Like you said earlier, they know what they want. We have to give them an opportunity to speak. I always say it's like we underestimate them and overestimate them at the same time. Like the things that we should be giving them some, leeway on, those are the things that we expect them to know immediately. And why don't you know this? And it's like, because I'm like 17, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you didn't teach me.
And you didn't teach me, exactly. But the things that, when it comes to like them knowing who they are, or like knowing what it is that they want to do in life, and or whatever, then we want to say, oh, you too young, you don't know nothing about that, you too young, So it's like I feel like we underestimate them and we overestimate them at the same time. And the truth of the matter is that if we just ask them where they are, they'll tell us, because they are so vast and varied. Just like any other cohort, some of them are in different places. I was talking to my niece the other day. She's 21, or she just made 22. She just turned 22 about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and she got this little job, and it's her first time getting this job where she said I ain't never made this much money before, and it brought me back to like that early 20s. The first time when I was like, damn, I ain't never made this much money. This more money than I ever made in my life, and like what that feels like, like that feeling of accomplishment, that sense of like feeling like you're on the right path. And she was like, because I was starting to worry, and I didn't think I was gonna. And I was like, girl, you 22 years old, girl. You got time to figure that thing out. You ain't gotta have it figured out right this minute, So I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. We have 54 minutes, which is crazy.
Oh wow!
Right.
Sounds fast. We're having fun.
Somebody gave you a shout out in the comments, and 45_.DJ says, "What's up, Major Butler?"
That's one of my former students.
Well, look at that. Hey, former student, how you doing?
Well, that's Damien Jr. What's up, man? How you doing? Thanks for joining us.
There you go. Thank you for tuning in. So before we wrap up, I want you to take maybe 1 or 2 minutes and go ahead and give everybody information on how they can reach you. Where can they listen to your content or work with you if that's something that they're interested in doing?
All right, definitely. Well, I am everywhere you want to be. No, I just like saying that. I'm Damien L. Butler, DAMIENLBUTLER, on Twitter and Instagram. The podcast is The Manifest One on Instagram. Damien Lamar Butler on Facebook. Like the stuff with my name on it is strictly it's kind of a big picture of who I am and what I'm doing. And I stuff on there about my kids, my wife, my life, my students, my birthday or stuff I did or had a good time doing. And I'm trying to paint a picture of who I am and what I do in life. And then the Manifest One is the podcast stuff, the leadership stuff, the speaking stuff. The website is themanifestone.org, and all information is there. That's getting ready to go through a revamp because websites are evolving just like everything else, and mine is a little bit older. So we're gonna fix that and get that right so it's easy to find information. But click on contact us, and you can email me. We get in touch, we can chop it up, and however we do it. I mean, now with the way things have gone the last 5 months, Zoom and any multimedia format, we can definitely work together and get some information across. But I enjoy the process of helping people, get what they want. Say, on the website it says Manifest One's purpose is to meet you where you are, help you get to where you want to go, and help you become a better person in the process. Yeah. So it's about everybody is caught up in the start. How do you start? How do you start a podcast all the time? My thing is start recording.
Yeah,
start recording because it sounds different when outside your head. And I put that on the Afros and Audio's question for Tuesday. I was like, start recording and get going. And it is my purpose is to help you, get to where you want to go. Manifest One.
Helping, right? You're going to be. Aren't you presenting at the? Are you presenting at Afros and Audio?
I am. So and I'm going to be talking about how to start. How to start a podcast. What when, where, and why. When, where, and how to start your podcast.
Yeah. So y'all already heard how insightful Damien is. He got that nice little timbre in his voice and things, he got a podcaster's voice, so y'all make sure that y'all check out his podcast and head over to his website, Manifest One.
TheManifestOne.org.
TheManifestOne.org. Yes?
That's all one word. Yes.
Yes. And y'all make sure
DamienLButler.com.
DamienLButler.com, and make sure that you head over to AfrosandAudio.com so that you can buy your ticket, first of all, for the second annual Afros and Audio Podcast Festival, first annual virtual. Well, first annual is not even like a thing, but it's the first time we're doing it virtually. Yeah. Thanks, Rona. So y'all make sure you head on over to get 25% off on your early bird ticket until August 31st. So you have until the end of the month to get this 25% off. Why would you not do that? Because you coming to the festival. Like that you coming to the festival. So you may as well get that 25% off while you can and make that happen. While you're there at afrosandaudio.com, you can go ahead and register for our free, it's actually the finale of our virtual summer series sponsored by ACAST for the Stories. Shout out to ACAST for the Stories. And so for the final installation of the Creative Kickback Virtual Summer Series, we're actually going to be doing inside the podcaster studio with Keisha TK Dukes, Anthony Frazier, Sam Riddle, and I think that's it. Yeah, Sam Rydell, Instagram told me I got 15 seconds left. So y'all go to afrosandaudio.com and get your tickets. My name is Latrice Sampson Richards. You can find me on Instagram at Latrice Sampson Richards. Thank you.